today we're going to look in my handy notebook at non-verbal communication. So non-verbal communication is communication that communicates meaning through behaviors instead of the words themselves. So that can be broken into two categories. Paralanguage, which is things like your pitch, your volume, your rate of speech, so our tone of voice, and body language. That's going to be things like our gestures, if we touch, our eye contact. These can be broken down into subcategories. So kinetics, that's movement. Kinetics is going to be for our body language. So gestures is one of them, and gestures can be broken down into adapters, which is like fidgeting, touching, if we're internally anxious and in a high state of excitement, positive or negative arousal, whatever, and if we're using self-regulators. Emblems would be things that are like thumbs up or the peace sign. These are gestures that are not like American Sign Language, but are a movement we use to communicate. And illustrators, so we might indicate the size of something by moving our body, and that illustrates the point of what we're saying or whatever. Our head movements, we can, and our posture, we can slouch, we can shake our head, we can tilt our head. These things communicate stuff as well, confusion, agreement, whatever. Eye contact, which is different depending on the culture significantly, but begging eyes, flirty eyes, we can do all sorts of things with just our eyes, and people know what we're feeling. Our overall facial expressions obviously have quite an impact. And then we have haptics. So haptics is touch. That's why you've got like haptic feedback on your Xbox controller and your cell phone. So that's going to be like placing a hand on someone's shoulder or touching them, to pat them on the back. Touch, right? Vocalics is the section for paralanguage. So pitch, volume, quality. If you add in a lot of fillers like I've been doing, your rate, your volume, your tone, these are important things. It sounds very different and it communicates different things if you're speaking in a high-pitched squeaky voice, or you've got a really scratchy throat. These things will affect our communication, whether intentionally or unintentionally. So a tone can communicate things like, if we use a questioning tone or surprise tone, even on the phone, we can understand what that means. Complimenting modifies the meaning, like if we were to say, he was the nicest guy, but like sarcastically, my mean neighbor is just the nicest guy. Accenting, when we say things like, I really loved it, that can be used. Substituting, can be like, I'm listening, we can use sounds and things that are made with our vocal cords but are not words. Regulating, so that would be like taking turns and putting an end to your thing enough to let someone respond, kind of create that ability for the back and forth, instead of just monopolizing the conversation. And contradicting, by like the famous, you ask someone if they're fine and they say, yeah, I'm fine, even when they're really not. Proxemics. So proxemics are things about how far away we are. So this is an important part of our communication because it can change the whole feel of what's going on. So they say that in in public, it's reasonable to be communicating with people up to 12 feet away. In a social space, you're looking at between 4 to 12 feet to be communicating and interacting with people, noticing their non-verbal communication, right? Relationships, personal communication, we're looking at more like 1.5 to 4 feet to be really paying attention to those things. And then intimate conversation is going to feel the impacts of the nonverbal communication very significantly, partially because you're within like 0 to 1.5 feet of each other. You're getting very in each other's space, so every little movement can really make a difference. Chronemics, so that's things that affect time and how it affects our communication. So are you falling asleep in the middle of the conversation because it's late at night and you're not a night owl? Our personal time and experiences, are we getting bored? When we get bored, things like that make time feel longer, even though it's not. So we could be bored at a social event, and for us it feels really long, and we might explain it that way. But for the next person over, they might have had a great time, and they might feel like it was really short. Some people look at life in a way of, I'm excited to make the next plan, that's my main focus, and other people look at life more reminiscing on past events. So that can all change our experience of a moment of communication. The physical time, the actual day and time on the clock and the season, these can affect people in many ways, including, how well you can see the person. Is it light or dark out? Are they dealing with seasonal affective disorder and it's affecting their mood? All sorts of things can be impacted just by the actual physical time. And then there's the cultural time. So some people are more into multitasking and flexibility, so they might have a communication style that reflects that, and that would be called a polychronic person. Whereas a monochronic person, they prefer like the scheduled, no, we're not going to just randomly hang out today, we're going to schedule something for tomorrow afternoon or next week. They prefer a linear lifestyle. And then the last one is personal presentation and environment. So how do we present ourselves? Are we someone that's dressed in a suit or fancy? Are we going all super gothic? These things will affect us. Are we covered in tattoos? These communicate stuff about ourselves and our physical environment. So what do you choose to surround yourself with? So here, for example, I've got space behind me. I love Star Trek. I love space. And so what I've chosen for an environment around me is part of the nonverbal communication that I'm sending out. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you learned something, push like. Catch you next time. Toodles.